Welcome to the CSDT orientation session 2. This is about the certified Selenium developers training. We have done the orientation session 1 day before yesterday. We kind of briefed on what you're going to do in the course overall in terms of what is Selenium is all about, what is its current position in the market, and why one should learn about Selenium. So that's pretty much we kind of discussed. So how many of you have already attended orientation session 1? Can you just, or who are directly attending today? So that will help. So I can brief a little bit and then we can go ahead with the actual agenda. Is there any attending today directly? Okay. Okay. Cool. Anyone directly attending session 2? Attending in a sense, even if you have watched the video, that's fine. Okay, looks like not many. So I'll just quickly spend 5 minutes in reviewing what we have understood, and then we'll go into the actual topics. So we understood why it's important to be master in Selenium. So today's world is majorly QA recruitments are happening uh, based on an automation knowledge. So nobody is ready to recruit just a manual tester. So that's the reality that we all know. Whether they are really implementing an automation or they're planning to implement little later in the project, but they definitely want to hire somebody who have both manual testing as well as an automation testing experience. And if you look at the current automation tools in the market, so we have different varieties of tools. I'm not saying this is the only tool. We have different categories of automation of tools, if I just name a few, right, in terms of where they stand. Let me just go and pick up a new document. So automation is available in many areas. Like one is functional testing. We have tools. We have, again, this is just to give you an idea for the people who are entering into IT with software testing as well. So we have load and performance testing related. We have accessibility testing related tools we have. And we have many tools for test management. Test management in the sense, where do you write, maintain your requirements or user stories, where do you maintain your test cases. Of course, you maintain your test execution information, execution cycle details, who executed, when it was executed, how many test cases passed, failed, etc. That information, and of course, linked with your defects, uh, defects management. So this is how it started, but now you can see most of them are directly application management lifecycle tools. It's not even just test management, application lifecycle management tools. Like you can call it as ALM is the right word to do that, application lifecycle management or test management tools. When it comes to functional testing tool is something that's a primary one, because you are going to repeat the testing for every new build that you're going to get with any small modifications. If the code has been changed in the project, then you'll have to do regression testing, and regression testing is a primary thing that might impact 50% of your existing test cases, 60% of your existing test cases. In the worst case, it might impact 80% of your existing test cases. So you have already tested something, but now you're going to repeat it. So you definitely need to think of automation, and that's where it lands in the category of functional testing. So currently, to just name a few, we have many tools. Definitely Selenium stands in the first. We have from HP or Micro Focus a company called a tool called UFT. We have VSTF or VSTS, Visual Studio Test Suite from Microsoft. We have Rational from IBM, Rational Suite. So like this, we have many tools in the market. Similarly, when it comes to load performance, we have like Load Runner, we have JMeter, uh, etc. So just to give you an idea of different tools that are available. And similarly for accessibility testing, we have some browser plugins that will actually ensure um, whether your system is fully acceptable or not. Even the tools like UFT has an inbuilt check for accessibility, whether it is accessible for all kinds of users, blind people, colorblind people, low vision people, etc. And whether every HTML tag has a alt property or not. So there are some tools that are available for the browser, and even the RGB color mix, whether it is in the right mix or not, because none of the website color should not look odd, because that will have a problem on your eyes when you look at the website. So there are certain rules from an accessibility point of view should be followed, and we have plugins which you can install for those browsers and check whether your website is accessible or not. And as somebody saying, like Swati is saying, we have application management tools like Microsoft Test Manager. We have obviously HPALM, and then we have Atlassian, Jira. Jira also you can consider to be an application lifecycle management. Test Trial for test case management, etc. So these are the different tools that we have in the market, but our focus is mainly on the functional testing tool that we're talking about. And I just discussed in one line, why do you need a functional testing to be automated? Because you're going to repeat the testing again and again. Because this is very important. Like before we make a decision about automation, people definitely calculate the return on investment, like how long this product is going to be available in the market. In the sense, like how long this product we are going to maintain. At least if you're expecting 4 to 5 releases, this project or product that we are going to work, you will definitely have regression testing to be done for every time. And we will calculate if we have total 1,000 test cases, and if you're planning to automate, say 400 test cases, what if the cost if you have to do manually, and what is the cost if you have to do through automation, how much benefit it is going to give. All those calculations will be done at your test lead and the manager level. Once that has been decided, we will be venturing out, or we'll be trying to do a feasibility study for different tools that are available in the market. Probably you have a trial version for a UFT, you might go try that for your application. Selenium is anyway totally free, so you can try with Selenium. Similarly, you can try with VSTS, and that's how generally people go for it. And if it is a web application, so today's market is like, if it is a web application, most of the people prefer Selenium for the various reasons. Like one is definitely it's open source, and it can be extended. Like you can use its libraries and you can build a framework on top of it. The best example is like at Workers INC, we have been building a product called AnyAuth, and some of you might have already gone through it, started using it. So that's totally built on the Selenium libraries. So what we're trying to do is already predefined functions that are available in the Selenium library can be extended to a beautiful framework like that. That's exactly the way the robot framework has been developed. So it can be extended with its library. So it's all open source. Anybody can take those libraries and extend it. Its libraries. So right now what we have is a Selenium 3.0, which is like 3.10. So some of the reasons, like open source, can be extended with libraries and works on different operating systems and browsers. So you just write once and the same code can be executed on Windows operating system, Macintosh operating system, and you can also try it on Linux or Ubuntu. Also with the different browsers like Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, you don't need to really add or change much of the code before you take this onto different operating systems. The immediate competitor most of the people tries to do is with the UFT, and it can take its second or third place compared with others, because one is, of course, they are also trying to come up with the best price model in terms of services because of the competition that we have from Selenium. But initially, for the last 3 to 4 years, I have seen only few startups and middleware companies started using Selenium. But today, it is in a situation where most of the multinational companies are trying to convince their clients and trying to switch to the Selenium, because it's easy to adapt, and the kind of support is there in the market. So because why major clients won't generally accept for open source, because you might not get required support when you get into a problem. Like a lot of companies like Bank of America, uh, uh, just to name a few such similar companies, are still using the UFT. And the concerns are very simple. If it is a commercial tool like UFT or QTP, just click off a raise of a ticket or raising of a concern to the customer care department. I will get a technical support and somebody will come and resolve my problem if I get into any of those. And that's generally people won't take it so easily with open source. So that's why it took some time in the last 3 4 years. But now the kind of experts is already available, technical solutions are already available in the market, and people are kind of saw the growth in the way people are adopting it and getting the benefit out of it. So you see a lot of change, the way people are adopting the Selenium. So there's no doubt in saying this is like standing in the number one from the web applications point of view, and that too from a functional testing point of view that I'm talking about. And testing is a different areas, like I talked about this, and definitely you have tools related to mobile testing is different. So I'm not talking of that. For that we have different libraries. But when you're actually talking about a web application functional testing point of view, this is the number one in the market. So that's one point that we have understood, like what is Selenium, why it's important to be in that. And I gave a quick idea about I think in the session one that we're going to start soon, you will get complete details about the differences between the QTP and Selenium point to point, because if somebody might ask you in the interview, or some of you might already know the UFT and you want to get into more details of that. And the Selenium is again a suite of components. It's not a single component. So it has IDE, it has a WebDriver, and it has Selenium Grid for parallel testing. So we're going to learn a suite of components. It's not just one. Again, if I have to just talk about one difference that's going to come over here is people who have learned QTP or UFT, you might felt that as a very simple one because you just install the tool and everything is ready for you. But in Selenium, why the training is required? Somebody, if as a G to learn on their own, UFT can be actually learned on their own, because once the tool is installed, it's pretty easy to learn it by its navigations, etc. Of course, it's always better to have an expert provided training so that it will take out even that time that you're going to explore on your own. But Selenium is something that's where it's not so easy, or it's not very straightforward, because it's open source. You have to download different components from different places and bundle it together into your Eclipse, which is a development environment for your automation or Java code. You have to first, you have to add all the required jar files that are related to the Selenium, add jar files that are related to the tasks that you're planning to achieve. For example, you may want to connect it to an Excel file, that you have to put the Apache POI jar files, or you wanted to create your automation through a JUnit framework or a TestNG framework. Then you have to download some plugins between the Eclipse and the TestNG, and also jar files related to the TestNG. So a lot of jar files. Just to give you an idea, you can actually see them. All that will be maintained in a repository called Maven repository. So Maven repository maintains all the jar files. For example, you just go and search all of these, like testng related jar file. When it comes to Cucumber, we are going to learn, we will use Cucumber jar files. And in case of JUnit, so JUnit has its own jar file. If you have to work with yeah, Cucumber anyway, like Cucumber, these are the different many jar files that we have. You're going to take all these files. So it Maven is the again from Apache. They maintain all these repositories. So we are going to download the required repository files, and we are going to add it to our development environment, that is Eclipse. So it's little until you get an expert's training, it'll not come so easily for everybody. That's the point that I'm trying to make. But once you understand the things, it'll be very straightforward. So we're going to learn with suite of components. It's not just a single component like a Selenium. So Selenium has its IDE, it's a web driver. Then we have a JUnit. Okay, if I have to just show you the whole things that we're going to learn as part of this course, I think that is the best thing to start with. Is anyway part of my orientation session 2 plan that we are planning to do. So we will have the next first session. We will have a detailed introduction about Selenium, like when it was started, what was Selenium 1.0. Can you all see the Excel sheet that I've just pulled up? And I want you to, session 2 is majorly for Q&A, because immediately after this, we're going to start with the uh, day 1 onwards. So I would like you to, I would like to give ample time for Q&A soon after, like next 15 to 20 minutes. So please be prepared with your questions that you may have before taking up the course. So we'll go into the detailed introduction to the Selenium, starting to understand what is 1.0, 2.0, and where we are right now in 3.0, just to get a picture of when it was started, how long it's been available, and what are the differences in 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, etc. Then we will have first three sessions on working with IDE, which is a simple recording and playback tool, where like UFT and any other functional testing tool, you can just record the actions on the web application, and you can play back them on the same web browser or a different web browser. You can just play back them. Then we will get into the, of course, there you will understand a few important things like how do we create test case and test suits. The main thing that is going to be important for you here is this one: how are the what are the different identification options for the locators when it comes to Selenium. So in session 1, I kind of explained how does any automation tool work. So you have your application, you have a automation tool. It will try to learn every single control or locator on the application with some unique information, and it will store that in the automation code or in some repository and use that during the playback on the application. So people who watched in session 1 can correlate. And I discussed, like, there are 8 different options in Selenium. Like, you can go with the ID, name, class name, HTML tag, you have something called XPath, CSS value, etc. So we're going to learn each one of them in detail. How can I get those properties first? If it is my Firefox browser, if it is my Internet Explorer, how can I get it? If it is Google Chrome, how can I get it? Once you get them, then how do you write that in your code? If it is IDE, if it is WebDriver, how do you implement them in the code? So all that we're going to learn. Then we will see some advanced features in the IDE, like how can you convert. So by default, what happens? The IDE, the code will be generated in HTML by default, but that HTML code can be converted into Java, Python, Ruby, C Sharp, the different languages that the Selenium can support. So we'll look at that feature that's available by which we can export and do that. So once we spend 3 sessions on understanding the few IDE basics, then we will get into the WebDriver. In WebDriver, we'll start from a very fundamental level. How do we install, first of all, the Eclipse tool? where we are going to develop the code. Most of the Java developers use Eclipse for their um, development of the code, and we have another competitor tool called IntelliJ, but that's like it's not freeware. It's not a free software, but some of the people do use IntelliJ also. And if you have a license for IntelliJ, you can even develop Selenium code on that as well. But again, 80% of the people, I would say, people use IDE because it's free. Sorry, Eclipse, so it's free. So we're going to use the same thing. So we'll start like installing and configuring the Eclipse. Then we'll first install Java. We'll go to Oracle website, download Java. I'm not going to assume that you know anything about it, so it'll be all from the scratch. It's all from very far, basic level. So you will be definitely initially you will be having some hurdles in like from where can I get Java, how can I install, how can I set its class path and Java path in my system, from where can I install Eclipse. There are so many different versions of Eclipse softwares available. So all that will be clarified in the first few sessions. Only when most of you, at least like if you're not trying, then I cannot really help, but only when 80-90% of the people are equipped with the required system and the tool to proceed. So that's when we will get into the day 6, day 7, etc. In developing the complex scripts. But first is installing all the prerequisites and then creating one basic Java example to check. Okay, somebody has put something in the chat, so let me check. Okay. I will share the spreadsheet, so don't worry on the spreadsheet much. But there is a question from John. I'm trying to understand. The intro discuss day 1 through day 16 for CSDT. When do these happen? How do I get access to these classes for these days? So all these are, okay, let me explain it. First, let's go through the whole list, and then I'll tell you how this will be available for you and how you need to proceed and start doing it also. Does that sounds good, John? Like if you can just wait for another 15 minutes, let me complete this list and then I'll show you what you can do. Okay. So the next day 4 is when we are going to understand a few advanced features, converting your script into the day 6 is when we are going to start with again different locator identification strategies in Eclipse. So here you understood through an IDE point of view, but here you are going to understand Eclipse. Again, the same options like ID, name, class name, CSS, XPath, link text, partial link text, all that. Okay, so for example, there's a question about the Java programming. We have, okay, to answer your question straightforward, yes, we already have an existing core Java videos that will be more than sufficient for you to understand from a language perspective. But the way that I'm going to do here is when I talk about a topic, for example, how to work with a text box. Typically, if you imagine a text box in a web application, what is going to happen? I can enter a value to a text box. That could be like that I need to learn first. So before that, I need to learn how to identify the text box, how to enter the value, and after entering the value, I may click on some button. And after that, if a result comes in another text box, I need to learn how to read that value from the text box. And the value that is being read from the text box, I may compare with my expected value. So I need to know how to write an if condition in Java. So I will write an if condition if expected value equal to actual value. Then I need to know how to print onto a log that this test case is passed or this test case is failed. So whenever a situation, whenever a scenario, a test case scenario being automated, I will introduce to different topics in Java, and that's we are going to learn the language perspective. For example, if I have to declare my expected value, then I need to know how to declare a variable, and then I need to know whether it should be a private or a public or a protected. Then I need to know whether it should be a variable or a constant first. So depending on the test case scenario, but one thing that I can assure you is by the time we complete all of them, you'll get most of the features of Java language, not like what is required from an automator or automation engineer point of view. Not like a developer for sure, but what is like, again, to start with, first of all, I need to create a class. So then we'll understand what is a class. Then how to class is a collection of objects and methods. So then what are my objects? What are the different methods that I'm going to declare? Again, what is a public method, private method we're going to declare? How can I pass parameters to a method? How can I return a value from a method? So all that you're going to understand in terms of Java fundamentals that are required from an automation engineer point of view, right from declaring variables, constants, defining classes, inheriting one class into another class, then like, having more than one class. Then when we get into the page object model, things will be a little more complex. Like for every single page, we'll create a new class file. Then how do we refer one of these methods from one class file into another class file? So we are going to use something called design patterns. So there's a lot of things we're going to learn, but on the case-to-case basis, not like a programming. Okay, first 10 sessions only on the Java programming language. I don't want to do that way. So I did it on a case-to-case basis, but we still have Java videos offline. If you want to learn it as just a programming separately, you can do that as well. Does that answer your question? Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to work with the different locators like text box, list box, radio buttons, check buttons, links, like, different links on the web page. And we're going to look at web buttons, how do we work with the different buttons on your application. And then we will look at different web browser commands. Like if a web page is given to you, if a web browser is given to you, what are the different commands that you're going to perform? Maybe like you may need to refresh your page, you may need to navigate forward and backward, or you may need to want to get the URL of that web page, or you may want to get the source code of the page. You can get the entire source code of the page, HTML source code of the page. So we're going to look at all those different navigations. It's a predefined method, but all we need to know is how to use and how to retrieve that value into a variable, how to display or how to compare. So then the moment you have different comparisons, you need to know how to work with strings. How do you get the length of a string? How do you compare a string? So all those things, again, you need to know from a strings perspective in Java. Then we will see very important scenarios generally comes in real time is that I have a web page. So how many links this web page has? And you may need to identify, one test case is straightforward, is you may need to identify the broken links in the page. How can I identify the broken links without really knowing all the links, without really clicking on a link? So you cannot really do that. So what we have to do, we have to write a code to go to the page, get all the links into a list array basically, and then you have to loop through each one of them, go and click on each one of them and see whether you are landing in the right page. And if any link is not working, log it out saying this particular link is not working. So doing that kind of exercises, similarly identifying all the different classification of controls, like identifying all the buttons in a page, all the frames in a page. Sometimes, a web page is nothing but a collection of frames. So how many frames are there, and what do you want to do with frame 1, frame 2? So basically there are two types of methods that you'll find in WebDriver. One is called find element and find elements. Find element, you have to give the exact description for the element, so it will go and identify that element. For example, find element by.id. If you give by.id, and if id is unique in the page, it will directly refer to the id or the control or locator that you're looking for. A similar case with any of these 8 identification mechanisms. If you are giving the unique information, it will go to the unique one and perform the operation that you're saying. If there is more than one matching to the description, it will perform. Any idea what is going to happen if more than one matches from your previous experience or any other tool experience? Suppose you have a web page and there are two locators matching to the description that you have provided. Okay, Swati is saying it will go perform on the first match. Is that the same experience that you all have? So generally other automation tools will simply throw an error saying there are more than one objects matching to the description, so I cannot really play back. But Selenium works slightly different. It will go and play back on the first one that is matching. Okay, so you can get to see all those differences as we go. Find elements will give you a list of elements matching to the description. Suppose you gave some description and there are 5 objects matching to it. All that 5 objects you will get into a list. And then you will, list is again a Java collections basically. So we'll use Java collections like arrays, lists, and we will loop through them by its index, and then we'll perform the required operations. Naturally, in automation testing, it won't be complete without really reading the data from an Excel file, without reading the data from a CSV file, because you may require to perform data-driven test. Same application, but different types of data that you're going to deal with it. Like for example, you have a simple customer form and order form, but you have 10,000s of different customers information that you want to test. So you just write the code once and you're going to play back the code for different 10,000 records. And you cannot do this manually, and it's not so easy, right? So definitely that's when we are going to use data-driven test, or we are going to develop something called data-driven framework. Before that, we're going to understand how do we read and write data back and from Excel file using Apache PY, jar files. Then we will develop the data-driven framework. So that will be like a complete understanding of what is data-driven test or a framework is all about. Then we will look at how do we handle alerts, web-based pop-ups. Like it's pretty common in web applications. Like you will get to see some alerts that are related to maybe there's a warning alert, or maybe there is like something went wrong. There is an expected alert. So you'll see a lot of pop-ups coming up in between. So how do you handle those alerts? So basically, you have to switch to that alert and take the necessary action to accept the alert or dismiss the alert. Sometimes you will have alerts where you have to enter the value. For example, if you're trying to browse through secured sites, it will again ask you your username and password. You have already logged in into the site, but again, when you're trying to access some confidential information, it will again ask you your user ID and password. So you need to first switch to the alert, then again try to enter the value to the alert box so that it will proceed to the required pages. So we'll see all that. How do we work with alerts, web-based pop-ups, handling windows, dynamic windows. Again, if you have more than one windows popping up, how do you switch from one window to the other window? So all that we're going to look at. Working with frames, as I told you, a web page generally developed with a collection of different frames. There are frames are of two types: frames and iframes, inline frames. Frames basically gets the data from another website and trying to display in your website, like maybe an advertisement of some companies onto your website. So we look at all that. How do we work with frames and iframes? And again, typically your web applications will have different tables, HTML tables, web tables. So how do we? No, today is again an orientation session. I want you to take the full picture of what you're going to learn, how we are going to learn, and the day one onwards it starts. We are in the orientation session 2 today. Because see, first of all, you need to have a complete vision of what you're going to learn. Otherwise, if I directly start with day one and here is a tool, then you will not have a picture of what is the end result of this course. So that's my whole idea of session 2. Session 1, I just started introducing what this tool is all about, why you should learn and why it's important. Session 2, I'm totally focusing on whole thing, what you're going to learn, so that you will have an end result. Okay, by completing of this course, what I'm going to learn, or what I'm going to be really mastering it. So that's the agenda for today. and then I'll definitely try to take a lot of Q&A. So we'll work with HTML tables or web tables. We'll perform different actions using action class, like you can create a collection of different keyword operations that you want to perform in an actions class, and you can perform all at one shot. Or we'll see how to take screenshots, like taking screenshot when you encounter your expected value, actual value not matching. Taking a screenshot is always help, because what I have experienced in my 14 years of QA is that bugs cannot be reproduced always, right? So there's no guarantee that you'll get that bug again. So better is to have a screenshot as and when you get. First, you need to have a screenshot. At least that will help the developer to understand where this message is coming from or what scenario he has coded that message. So taking a screenshot, how to take screenshot in Selenium, we're going to learn that so that you can plug in. So everything we're going to create it as a common reusable functions, so that we can call it in multiple tests, not in a single test. This is what, again, people who work in automation recommendation is that even if you're going to write one line of code, and if you think this is going to be useful tomorrow, either by you in a different test or by your team members in a different project, you should create it as a common function library. And when you create that common function library, the next project automation or next when you have to write a similar code, you don't need to write again. You can simply call it from that library. So we'll do all that best practices, even naming conventions, when you have to name a variable, when you have to name a class, what are the best practices you have to follow from a Java perspective. So we look at all that. Then we look at different annotations. This is from a TestNG framework. So we're going to understand JUnit framework first, which is a unit testing framework. A lot of developers, or I would say like all of the developers who write the Java code, developer have to perform unit testing. We all know that unit testing is a responsibility of the development team before it is handed over to the testing team. And if they have to write a unit testing, in what way they're going to write unit testing is majorly using JUnit. So we are also going to understand what is JUnit and how and what are the different annotations that are available in JUnit. We'll spend a day in learning, JUnit framework. But after that, you'll be more confident when you're talking to developers. When they try to explain why my unit testing is fail and all that, you'll understand in a better way. And why we are learning that, the next framework, the TestNG framework, is built based on JUnit framework. So it will also create a ground for us to understand the TestNG framework better. So then we'll go understand the, it's not one day. We're going to definitely, the TestNG framework alone will take about, okay, by the way, if you look at, I've put here how many sessions it's going to take. So it's just not like day 19 is just one day. So TestNG alone will take like these many sessions. Okay. So we're going to understand the TestNG framework. What are the different annotations, creating examples using the TestNG framework. Again, how do we do data-driven tests through TestNG, and what is the different reporting options we have. And one thing that I have not put and we're going to look at is the listeners in TestNG. So we're going to learn all these things from TestNG framework point of view. Then we're going to start and look at something called Selenium Grid, which will help in performing parallel execution. Again, in session 1, I have given a diagram or a picture about it. Orientation session 1. Suppose I have 100 scripts. If I run one by one, it's going to take like 200 minutes. Each test case at least 2 minutes. Let's say 200 minutes. I don't have that much time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to parallelly run it in 3 different nodes by splitting into like 33, 33, and 34. So I would just need about 60 minutes to run all of them, because if test case is taking like 2 minutes and 33 into 2, maybe like 34 into 2, I would need around 70 minutes to finish everything, not 200 minutes to finish all of them. So that capability comes with Selenium Grid, where you can actually run parallelly on multiple devices. Then we look at database testing. in Selenium, like how can I, first of all, what is MySQL, or any other database like Oracle or a SQL? How to install MySQL on your machine? Then we'll use JDBC for connecting from your Java to the SQL, retrieving the data from the database. On top of it, again, we can add conditions like, is it matching with the data that is coming on my application and matching with the data coming from a database or not? According to that, you can take a call whether the test case is passed or failed. Then we're going to look at page object model or page factory. Again, it's a framework. For every single page on your web application, we're going to write a separate class file. The advantage of that is if I have a page like login page, order page, customer page, for login page, I'm going to create one class file. Order, I'm going to create one class file. Customer, I'm going to create one class file. If there are any common objects in all these three, I'm going to create it in a common class file. So the advantage there is like if tomorrow there are any enhancements to your application or changes to your application, it's not like everything is in one single file. You have to go search. So you have clearly segregated as per the page. You can go and find out easily where it is and make the changes. See, I mean, okay, there is one question from Balaji, like, do we need an extensive knowledge on database? If you are a manual tester or an automation tester, does not matter. You need to be definitely familiar with some good SQL queries. At least you can expect 1 or 2 questions in the interview about database. The reason, because any application that you're going to test, if you test it only from the front end, it's not sufficient. You all know every application will have 3 layers. One is the UI, it'll have a middle layer where the business logic will be written, and you will have a database layer. And actually, if in a fresh project, how this is going to happen is, few people will be working on the database creation first, and few people, when some of these database components are ready, they'll be working on creating the middle layer so that the middle layer can talk to database layer and database layer can give the information back to middle layer, etc. And when these services and middle layer is ready, people are going to work in UI so that the UI can talk to middle layer and the middle layer can talk to database. Database can return to middle layer and can return to UI. So UI in the sense the browser from which you are operating. Let's say if you open any website from where the users are entering the inputs. So this is your UI. And from a testing point of view, the best test strategy is you should test everything independently. You should have few test cases for testing database alone, because this is what first being developed. When this is first developed, you don't need to wait for middle layer and UI to complete and then only I want to start end-to-end testing. No, you should have some strategy to test on the database first. Then when the middle layer is developed, you should have some strategy to test the middle layer also. That's where you might have heard about API testing, web services testing, right? So that's where you are going to hit on the middle layer. You call the API with the required input parameters and see it's going to the right database and getting the data back. So this is where API testing and services testing come into picture. So you need to have a strategy to test your APIs or web services. But is this what we are going to give it to client? Yes, in today's world, it's mostly service-oriented architecture. So you may give these services exposed to different systems, and other systems may call the middle layer or services directly. And this is one full set of testing. But if from your application point of view, even after the UI is developed, you have to have a full-fledged functional testing from UI point of view. So you need to have end-to-end test cases. So this also will be one another full system that you have to test. But ideally, you should have a strategy to test database first, APIs first, and from end-to-end test first, because it's all agile. You're not going to wait for the complete development to happen. Like if the developers needs 3 months for this, you're not going to simply sit idle for 3 months. So if in the first sprint they have developed some database objects or components, In the same sprint, the testing team is going to validate all these objects, whether they're properly created or not, right information is going there or not, right information is coming back when you query. You'll do all that. Relationship among multiple tables, the replications, mirroring, if there is any concept that they're going to set up multiple servers in different locations. So all that, like insert the data in one server and ensure it's going to the other server immediately. So if I answer your question, yes, you need to have some knowledge on the database because there will be at least one or two questions you can definitely expect on, if not from the complex topics that I've just explained, SQL queries you should be familiar. How to retrieve the data from a single table, how to retrieve the data from multiple tables, how to join more than one table to retrieve with where class, without where class. So some of those queries you should be familiar. All right. Cool. Let me just erase this. Okay, so we're going to look at page object model page factory, and then I've put it like Java language. I told you because I'm going to deal it in as and when required, but we have videos, so that will be given to you. And frameworks point of view, if you have to understand, we have already looked at data-driven framework in like from row number 13 or day 12. But you will get a picture of how to do data-driven framework. We will do a keyword-driven framework development. We'll do a hybrid framework development. And I was talking about logging. So whenever things go right, wrong, you want to log. Even for an information, you want to log it. When error comes, you want to log it. When warning comes, you want to log it. So how do we use log4j? Log4j is very popular in Java for logging. So we'll do that. From Selenium point of view, this is like basics and advanced, and we'll be definitely having discussion on frequently asked questions, resume preparation, etc. But that's not enough. What we also going to do from a continuous integration and continuous deployment perspective, again, I covered it in my session 1. What is this CI/CD is all about? So we have to understand Apache Maven tool, which is build tool, we call it as. We have to look at with Jenkins. We have to understand test-driven development, acceptance test-driven development, behavior-driven development, and a tool like Cucumber. And then I talked about robot framework, which is built on top of Selenium library. So we're going to look at that. Anyway, uh, most of you would be learning from our, which is a product from Workers INC, which is again on the Selenium library that we are building. Okay, so this is a complete picture of the topics. So the number of sessions it's going to be take, definitely it's not 16 or it's not what we have. So here is a total number of sessions. And the way we are going to learn it is, I'm coming to that approach. Yeah, Excel will be shared. As I told you, Josna, don't worry on this. Excel will be coming to you. The approach that we're going to take it is, now people who have already decided they want to go for it should actually start. So I have done this batch very recently for all the topics that I've done. We have done it very recently, I think around 40 days back. We have all the videos for it. Okay. Then apart from the existing videos of like 35 to 37 that we have added 16 more sessions to this course exclusively. I would say 15 because we're done with today's one also. So we have 15 sessions exclusively for this course, in which I'm going to, like, definitely you all will go through this and you'll have some questions. So clarifying those questions practically on the Eclipse, adding different examples. Suppose if I would have covered working with identification, ID, name, class name, if I would have worked with let's say one type of a control, then I will give another example of how to work with that. Then different examples, what is not already covered, we'll try to cover up them in the 15 sessions that we have. But if you ask me like, is it the only 15 sessions that we have to attend? It's not. 15 sessions are going to be summary of what you're going to learn with some new examples that are not already covered. So in a way, you have to go through all 37 videos that we have recently done it. Those are the first things for you. And the 16 15 sections that I'm going to have will be to clarify all your questions, to give different examples. If you get stuck anywhere, anybody to help you on getting back onto the track with a required example. So that's mainly from 16 sessions, and any topics that is not being covered will be covered in those 15 sessions. What is expectation for completing Selenium? Can you be a bit elaborate on that? What is expectation for completing Selenium? I mean, I can understand this question in a different ways, but I just want to hear it from you. What is courses first? Do we have to go? No, no, it's all different. So there is no prerequisite for this as such. And just like if you understand manual testing point of view, what is a test case, how we generally write a test case and validate. Because we're going to, while automating it, I'll keep saying if this is your test case and if this is your expected value, this is your actual value. This is how you can write in Java and compare. So if you just know the test case fundamentals, that's good enough. But as such, you don't need to really know any prerequisite for this, because you have to go to learn everything from the beginning, right from Java, installing Java, Eclipse, everything from scratch. If you know any other automation, it might have advantages and disadvantages. Advantages because you'll understand very easily how different automation works. Disadvantages, if you always try to compare the way the other tool was working, then Selenium is going to be slightly different. So you have to learn Selenium as Selenium. Not all the videos. So the way we are going to do it is like, okay, there's one more thing that I need to confirm back is the IDE was kind of not working recently with the latest version of Firefox. So I will, I mean, I have tried doing it, still not succeeded on the IDE because it's not, it's actually broken with the latest Firefox. So they're trying to fix on that. What we will do, we'll start with WebDriver first directly. So first few videos, if you can go through on like only the first topic, installing, this will have videos like 3 to 4 videos actually. Exactly like Ashna, like if you have to share the videos anyway, we're going to share all of them. But the team, you can just go through day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. These 4 videos before the next session when you come. I will summarize everything that into the 1.5 hour session that we're going to have. And I will do it on my system practically, so that again you will clear your doubts if there are anything that is not clear from the video. We'll create a couple of examples. We'll configure the WebDriver with Eclipse, and we'll write one basic example. And from there, I'll tell you again what are the next set of videos that you have to go through and come back. And then I'll cover with more examples. So for now, just the first 4 to 5 videos, that's all. I don't have development knowledge, so how should to get that in command? Will it be covered in this course or it's like self-learning? Okay, there are some very good videos done by Karthik on how somebody should do a programming. So you can watch those videos. Will give you a perspective of like how programming is, what is programming, and how somebody should get a good way to go with the programming. But to answer your question, it's not completely self-running. I would say you will learn a lot of things with our examples, the way we are going to do it. Then you'll understand, okay, is this what? Then you have to try a different example. So the thing is, you need to watch the video, understand and the example and what we're trying to introduce a programming concepts there. Go back, revisit again the video. Third step is basically try to perform on your own the same example. And if you have succeeded without really looking at the video, if you're able to do it on your own, the same example, That's definitely an achievement and a celebration. Then try something on your own, like whatever the example that I have explained, you try it out a different example, and if you're able to make it again, definitely it's a learning. So it doesn't come overnight for sure. It definitely requires a lot of practice, but that's somewhere we have to start. So it's definitely not completely through self-learning. You need some training for that. All right, team. So before the day one, if you can watch the first 5 videos, we should be good for the next day one and day two. Selenium and perfect with live project. Correct. Okay. Sorry. What is that? The full question. Is it 1 month? No, no. I would not say 1 month. I don't want to go very aggressive. I don't want to put any unrealistic timelines. Even if you have a time crunch, my only answer for it is at least keep it like 2 months. The reason, because one is learning, and learning won't be sufficient unless you practice. So 1.5 hour for video to go through, right? And then another 1.5 hour for your practice. So in a way, 2.5 to 3 hours per day for 2 months consistently without really having much breaks. If you can do that, then you'll be lot of. I mean, you'll be in a better confidence by 2 months. That's all I can say. Yes, first, no, the examples which I have covered in the existing sessions itself are more than one. And again, on top of it, we are adding more examples now. So if you look at, the way you have to look at is like, I've been doing this training for last 3 years with iTeLearn alone. Before that, I have done in the classroom training. If you look at every batch, we are trying to make some improvement. So if you come to this batch, what is going to happen? Apart from the example that I've covered in the previous, you're going to get more examples, which I could not do previously because of already it was 37 to 40 sessions. So that's the way you have to look at. You are going to get more examples, and if based on your access membership and all, if you're there with us for 1 year, 2 years, lifelong, you're going to get more and more examples as we go. Okay, I have no idea about other tools. How do I go about it? So I don't want you to, I mean, which other tools? I just gave an intro of the different tools that are available in the market. It doesn't mean that everybody should be perfect in all of these tools. No, I know at least like UFT, I know Selenium, I know Load Runner, I know, but this game did not come in like 1 or 2 years. I have like total of 14 years. So I worked with MTM, HPLM, Jira, Test Trial, all of this, but it comes over a period of time. So if you have 2 years, or if you go and start work with something like less than 2 years of experience, I don't expect that somebody should know all of this. But you can learn over a period of time. You can uh, definitely like can win some time from learning alone. If you have 6 months, you can definitely learn half of them for sure from the trainings, or you can take step by step. You can take Selenium, try out for the jobs, and look out what is there required for them. All right, so is it clear the way we are going to learn, how we are going to learn? So you all will get the videos access that we already have. People who have completed the membership with us, you get all the existing videos. So please take out some time before the day one starts from this batch. So go through 1 to 5 videos. It won't take like each one will be around 60 minutes, 60 to 70 minutes. So if you just we complete the 5 videos and come back, I will summarize that in a couple of other examples, and then if you have any problems in setting up, all will be cleared, and then we'll move forward. Don't worry, people who miss the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you will get the video in like 2 hours from now. So the way we are going to look at it is like we're going to start in ideal time is we wanted to start within like 4 days from now, but it's not realistic from us like just giving 4 days for the 4 sessions. Maybe some of you might have not completed and especially when you're starting with something new, So we may give a maximum of 5 days, and then we'll start the day one. All right. Any other questions that you have? Even if you did not have any idea about any automation, it should be fine. Somewhere you have to start, and start with Selenium. That's all I can suggest from the industry point of view. There's so many tools came in between. They were very popular without much programming, with just recording and playback. But again, their scalability, their as the technologies are increasing, so they were not able to scale much. So that's why again people going back to, even though you have to do a little bit of programming in Java, so it is kind of scalable. So that's why people are going back towards Selenium. So somewhere, even though you're a tester, you need to start with some programming on the automation side. Yep. All right. I agree with you. Now all clients are asking Selenium experience. Yeah, it's pretty true. Okay, next session, I think, Ashna, are you there? I think it's about 6:30 PST. So it'll be like another 30 minutes from now. We need more and more practice. There is no doubt about it. Even after having 13, 14 years of experience, I have to be hands-on. And you won't believe it, I am at a lead level, kind of managing a team of QA. Unless I cannot be hands-on on all the things that like 13 members of my team is doing. And this is one good area for me where I'm passionate about. By providing the training, I can get to touch upon everything other than the area that I'm working on. So even if 13 members come to me with different questions, how should I do this, I will have an answer for them, because I'm going to touch upon each of these apart from the complete hands-on area. So that's one good thing for me to learn every day. So even if you get into the career, there's no way you can say that, okay, I'm done and just work on it. No, you learn and you'll work. All right. Yep. Thanks everyone. It's a good session with good questions. We'll see you in day one soon, like 4 to 5 days from now. But before that, people have taken membership, so just start it. Maybe soon after the weekend you want to start, or weekend is a good time for you. I don't know what works for you. Just start going through those videos. All right, team. Thanks everyone. See you on day one.